And I, once again, in the beginning of our seminar, I would like to ask everyone, all the participants, could you please mute your sound and your video? We can see just the speakers and the moderator. Thank you for your understanding. So how is it going on in Virginia, Mr. Bilici? Is everything safe there?
Yeah, we are a little safer than New York, but not perfect.
We hope everything will be all right very soon in New York, all around the world. Everybody can stay safe, healthy. Yeah, we are still trying to get Arbana on board. Sorry for the delay, but she's having some problems with the connection, so she's trying to her phone to get connected. When she's on, you can start. So, Mr. Bilici, we can hear your own ideas and your own insight about the topic until Arbana comes. Then we can go on together.
Indeed, I'm not an expert on this specific issue, but of course, as a journalist, I'm following what's going on, and I have been target of these long arms in several occasions. And as an introduction, I can describe some of the things that I witnessed personally.
Yes.
When I used my right to speak, to tell the story of persecutions in Turkey, around this country in America. So I wherever I go to speak, in the conferences or in meetings, in press briefings, I see the government of Erdogan is trying to prevent with all measures that they can use. For instance, I was in a conference in Houston where I was invited by the World Affairs Council, and I learned from the council representatives that the three persons from the consulate of Turkey in Houston visited them and asked to cancel the event. So it was a harsh conversation between the World Affairs Council representatives and the three employees of the Turkish State Department. Luckily, they did not bow down. They did not cancel the event, and I had the chance to speak out in that conference. But this is a kind of routine. It's not the Erdogan government closed, shut down a lot of critical media outlets, jailed a lot of journalists in Turkey, and we now know that his government controls 95% of Turkish media, but this is not limited to Turkey. So they continue with all their powers to silence critics around the world, including democratic countries. So I had also another event, which was in Ohio, Dayton. So I was invited again to tell my story and the story of the jailed journalist in Turkey and the press freedom. And when I went there, I saw that the hosts, the organizers were alarmed. And I said, why? What's happening? What's going on? And they told me that someone whose name is Islam from the Ahıskan community. So he threatened organizers to cancel the events. So this person, the name is Islam, is an American citizen from Ahıskan community, and he is in direct link and connection embassy in Washington. And so he was feeling or daring to threaten some American institutions to prevent an exiled journalist to speak out.
Yeah.
So I had three events in Ohio during that time, and in all those events, they tried to create problems and prevent me from speaking. And I learned from later from organizers that this guy threatened the host of the event, saying that if you let this journalist to speak in those events, you would never go to Turkey. You would not be able to go to Turkey. So this was one of the threats that this guy was using. And of course, they came to the event. They tried to harass and intimidate me in front of the audience. And they, it seems they found a cameraman, and they shooted my speeches. And then the other day, I was on the headlines of the Turkish media, all over in the government control media and the rest of the media, saying that the terrorist was blaming Turkey in Ohio. So this is one of the examples of how Erdogan government continues its efforts to silence journalists, not just in Turkey, but even in democratic countries.
Yeah, yeah. Even in the United States, as you say, yeah. Yeah, hi. On behalf of them, I say hi because they cannot speak. They are muted. So, Arbana, let's start with your biography.
Yes.
Who are you? Why are you in the United States right now as a Kosovan journalist? Let's start with that.
Yeah, so I'm from Pristina. So I've been writing since after the war. The first 10 years I've been covering different, start writing on religious issues because there are a lot of new things we've faced during that time. So then I realized that something else is happening. So the increase of the Erdogan influence all over the Balkans. So I decided to go on the field and investigate what is happening, what is going on, not just in Kosovo, but also on the neighbor countries. So the newspaper that I was working as an editor-in-chief, we conducted a lot of investigative pieces. I had a support of a lot of people coming also from the religious background, so imams, because they were telling me what is happening. So I went also to some EU countries to make this link on the funds that they were coming to Kosovo. And then the problem started, as I've already mentioned before, with I was surprised basically with a former Turkish ambassador reacting on my writings. We all know what is happening in Turkey, unfortunately, but it was surprise for owner of the newspaper when I was working as an editor-in-chief and reacting on our writings. So what we have done was religion, like the mosque that he'd been building, but in meantime, there were a plan of his personal agenda. because let me mention you a case in Prizren. He has reconstructed an old mosque. So then he asked the Albanian imam to leave so he could bring his own Turkish imam supportive of Erdogan. So it's mostly the political agenda. So he's been using mosque for his plan. So I was reporting from the field. So we brought facts. From 2011 to 2014, he reconstructed 30 new mosques. But also what he did through the TICA organization, for example, in Peja, they asked for the permission to build a house, and then we realized that something else is going on. So he's been using as an office for the meetings of the people that were supporting him. In meantime, I was surprised because we were not paying attention on how much he has been investing on media, because whoever started writing against what he was doing in Balkans, they start using this whole machinery of propaganda against us. So it was the way they were trying to silence us.
Mm. So besides this,
so this is what, for example, the case of my colleague, one of my colleagues now, he runs the largest newspaper online media in Kosovo. They asked to arrest him. So this is what happened. And unfortunately, we have less and less journalists covering what is he doing in the Balkans, not only in Kosovo, but also in Macedonia and other countries.
Yeah. So you mentioned the tool of political Islam and the institutional level of,
yes.
Impact on Balkan countries. And how might a foreign government, as Turkey government, assert itself in Balkan countries? How?
First of all, it depends which country. In Serbia, for example, he knows that the majority are Orthodox. He's sending investments. He's sending hundreds of businessmen. In Bosnia, also in Kosovo, when he knows the majority are declared Muslims, he brings a lot of money to build mosques. But one other thing, I don't know if you hear me. Can you hear me, Hafsa?
Yeah, we can hear you. Perfect.
Okay. So what happened besides building mosques? So we've started after the war the privatization process of the public enterprises. So through his son-in-law, through Chelik organization, the company, the business, he achieved to privatize the main Kosovo assets, which is airport and energy distribution. So we, as a media, we were just looking for, there was not a transparent process. So he was very close with the politicians. As what happened, he achieved to arrest 6 Turkish people, accusing them as Gulen followers. As you know, the private jet came in Kosovo at the airport, they arrest them and they send them to Turkey. This could not be possible with Erdogan has the support of the Kosovo president, Taci. That's why he could do whatever he wants in Kosovo, because that was a big scandal what happened in March of 2018 with the professors from the Gulen school.
Yeah.
So he has built in the last 10, 15 years, he has spent a lot of money. So it's not just things happened over the night. It started since after the war. So he used these problems that we are facing still as a new country. So as you know, Kosovo is the only country that is not allowed to travel without visa. So the Turkey allowed us to so we are isolated. That's why he's using this situation with his sinister agenda.
Yeah. So Arbana, I would like to ask, you mentioned different, ways of getting involved in Balkan countries of the Turkish government. What's the ultimate goal that they want to reach at the end of the day? What is there in Balkans for them?
As you know, Hafsa, okay. So what happened? most of the Western countries, the Western Balkan countries are in the process of the EU integration. And you know the relationship of the Turkey, of the Erdogan with a Western leader with the Western countries. So this is a plan of his agenda. He wants to keep us away from the EU. And let me tell you, Kosovo people are frustrating being isolated for more than 20 years since after the war. And of course that he is using this situation. So every time I criticize Erdogan, I receive a lot of reaction from the Kosovo people, the young, mostly they are young, saying that EU, what they have done, we are still isolated. So he is using this situation. Like he wants to become, as you know, not only Balkans, in other countries outside the Turkey as a Muslim leader. But the thing is that it's a perfect environment right now with all this problem that Kosovo is facing: high unemployment, poverty, isolation. There is a huge frustration. And of course, like we had aid that he brought just 2 days ago in Kosovo. And yeah, this is, he always have done like this in Albania, in other countries, in Macedonia. As you know, Albanians in Macedonia, they have a lot of problems. So he has been investing, and whenever, and people are not well informed because he has built his own media support in the Balkans. Like when I talk to the young men and women, telling them, see what is happening. Do you know that there are Turkish people suffering from Erdogan? So it's not criticizing Erdogan that we are criticizing Turkey, that we are against the Turkish people. Turkish people are suffering from him. So just a couple of days ago, he arrested the Turkish veteran journalist just because he have criticized Erdogan for asking money from the people and not spending the state money to face the problem with the coronavirus. So in meantime, Erdogan that is asking money, so this is all the part of his agenda.
Arbana, before delving into your own experiences, as you know, I know that you were beaten up in Kosovo by some gangs. Before going there, I want to ask you: does EU accession status of Kosovo, of Albania, of other countries in Balkans play a role in Turkey and Balkan relations?
Of course. Officially, we do not have a statement from the EU saying that what Erdogan influence is increasing. Officially, except of the Austrian officials, they have been reacting. Otherwise, yeah, we had the French president a year ago in the summit in Sofia in Bulgaria when he raised this issue of the influence of Erdogan in Balkans. But I also blame EU for not speeding up the process of the integration. So being isolated, as I said, is creating a perfect environment for Erdogan. I think that they should, US and EU should like pressure more Erdogan. But as you see what is happening in Syria, what is happening with Kurds, what is happening also outside Turkey. So there is a silence, like I don't know, it's just about, I do really blame EU official when it comes to the Balkans for their policy, and see what happened with Albania and Macedonia at the time when they were expecting to start and being a part of the EU. It stopped. And of course that Erdogan is going to use right now the situation which benefits him.
Yeah. Before going to your experience, I want to say that our participants can write questions in the chat box, and we have friends there from our organization, our volunteers. They can answer, or they can take notes that we can ask Arbana your questions. And here I want to turn into Mr. Bilici. If he wants to, interfere, please come and ask your questions, Mr. Bilici. I know that you have some things to say, some things to ask. Yeah, go and interrupt me, please. I'll unmute you.
Okay, now we are good. So I think we should understand the change in Turkey after 2000. Turkey was trying to be part of democratic world, trying to become a democracy, and trying to become part of European Union. But after that date, after 2000, 2011, 2012, Middle East to the Islamist ideology. And with that ideology, in the beginning, in the Arab world, with the Arab Spring, they invested a lot to establish kind of an Islamic network, especially through Muslim Brotherhood. And with that, they started to use all the institutions of Turkey in that goal, in the direction of that goal. I mean, if you look at the Anatolian News Agency, it is an important tool now, since 2011, 2012, in making the propaganda of Erdogan as the leader of the Muslims around the world. So they established the branches in the Balkan countries, and in Bosnia, in Macedonia, in Albania. So they became an important source of news for those medias that are giving news to these communities, the Balkan communities. And in addition to that, Erdogan government was inviting journalists from those countries to Turkey, just to make their propaganda, their version of what's happening in Turkey. So as part of that, I mean, it has been. I want to learn Albana's perspective on how this official news network of Erdogan is influential, how it is effective in brainwashing, especially the Muslims, as it is very effective in Turkey, within Turkey, to brainwash people in line with the official propaganda. So how those networks are effective in Albania and in general Balkan countries?
Yes. So as I told you, he has been investing for the last 10, 15 years in the media. So he have built this ground supportive on whatever he is doing. So they promote him, his investments. So whoever has the courage to criticize him, they are going to start propaganda with lies again. What happened in my case? They took a footage of an old person, which nothing to do with my family, it's close to my city where I used to live. So during the Milosevic regime, he said some good word for Milosevic, supporting Milosevic. And what this media have done, they have spread all over the news that he's my granddad, that my family supports Milosevic. So you see, they want to lose my credibility with a fake news saying that Arbana is against Erdogan, she's pro-Serb. So how can you convince 200,000 people that that is a lie? This way they try to silence you, threaten you. Because people that threaten me, like, you see, you are pro-Serbs, they try all like the possible ways to silence you. In meantime, just a post on the Facebook criticizing Erdogan, I can write whatever I want when it comes to our politician, but when I criticize Erdogan, you cannot imagine the reaction I receive. But let me tell you something, most of those people are not well informed who Erdogan is because of the media, that he spends a lot of money in the Balkans to promote him as a leader of the Muslim, as a pro-Muslim, and not only the media, he has a professor in the university, he has in the politics, he has people that are supporting him. So he has built a huge network of all over the Balkans on his support. So if I do write something or investigate something, if I bring facts, and I brought facts, they're going to post the video which was a fake news, just to lose my credibility and people not consider what I am investigating or writing. So this is what he achieved to do.
One of my, actually, Arbana, you answered one of my questions. I was going to ask you why are people in Balkan countries conforming to such activities of a foreign country? But yeah, you answered that question. Thank you. And
Yeah.
could you please tell a little bit about the award that you got in the United States and what was the reason? Yeah.
Yes. So in 2012, I started writing on mostly the investment that came from Saudi Arabia. So they've been using our situation after the war. So they've been offering free English and computer courses to the small children, and then asking in return to learn more on religion, but based on their ideology. So we were all focused on other problems that we faced as a new state, and no one was really paying attention that what their investments attention was. So in 2012, I won a fellowship from the Balkan Investigative Network reports. So I started investigating all over the Balkans, and I went in London. So I find out that there are also other organizations that are sending money in Kosovo. And then in 2012, that investigation was published. But what happened in 2013, 2014, as you know, with the Islamic State, 300 young men joined Islamic State from Kosovo, and everyone was surprised. And I was just 2 years ago alarming, see what is happening. They have built an army, and they are all victims, because I've been talking with their parents. So most of their parents are coming from they are declared Muslims, but they are secular Muslim, nothing to do with this organization. So most of them, they were young men, young women. So they used, as I said, the poverty, they used the isolation, they used all the problems that our youth was facing. So the award was related to my articles on fight of the criticizing the Islamic State, the way they were recruiting young men and women. So in 2015, I was nominated from the U.S. ambassador in Kosovo as a woman of courage, and then I won this award. There were 10 women from all around the world. So the different backgrounds, so not all of them journalists. We have from civil society, and so the different backgrounds.
Yeah. I will merge two questions to have an insight in Kosovo. Why were you beaten up? And is there an opposition media still in Kosovo right now?
Yes, they are opposition media. They are very good journalists. They have a credible media. I don't know who has attacked me. Police still didn't find out. The prosecution also. What I was disappointed when I find out who is the prosecutor that took my case. So I was investigative journalist. It was not hard to find out who that person is. So until that, he was dealing with a traffic case. So how can a prosecutor that deal with the traffic find out my case? So now 3 years in May that the attack happened, and still nothing. So after the attack, I was receiving threats. So it was impossible. Like people, my kids being isolated, and it was very hard because even though the police were like, we are doing everything, but there are 3 years and you didn't find out who attacked me. So as I cannot blame no one without knowing who attacked me. I know that night I was in Albania on the TV show speaking live about the Erdogan investment, Erdogan agenda in the Balkans, in Kosovo and Albania. And that night happened the attack, but I don't know who did that.
Yeah, sure. There is a question from the participants. It's in short is there a bigger power behind Erdogan, like Russia, like China, to have an impact in Balkans, in Kosovo in particular?
As you know, what is happening in Middle East, we had a few meetings between the Putin, Rouhani, and Erdogan, sending the clear message to the Western leaders that we do not need you. We are going to solve the problem in the Middle East. Same in Balkans. We have the huge Russian impact in Serbia. So they send munitions to even though the EU is reacting, you cannot receive munition from the Russia, but they are still continuing to do that. So I don't know if after the Erdogan might be Putin, but I know that they have the same agenda in the Balkans Balkans, to keep Balkans away from the Western countries.
Mhm.
But it depends from the country. In Serbia, there is more Russian influence. In other countries, there is more Turkish influence. So the thing is that both Russia and Turkey are using also the political route to get into the power and to receive, as I mentioned before, Erdogan has the support of the leaders of the Kosovo president. You have the Bosnian, we have the Edi Rama from Albania, who attended the wedding of the Erdogan's daughter when she got married 2 or 3 years ago. I don't remember exactly. So obviously it's beyond the official or bilateral relationship between the countries.
Yeah. Can you compare the impact of Turkish government in Kosovo before the abductions that took place last year and after that? Things accelerated or slowed down there?
In the beginning, as I told you, what was alarming was that he took under his hands the main assets. So we've been criticizing why we should leave all our main assets, airport and energy and all the factories under the Erdogan's hands. And then when we find out we're building the mosque, now officially, as I'm telling you, you can see the reaction from the people supporting him. Officially, of course, you have now the prime minister, the new prime minister, Kurti, which is not corrupted. This is how he got into the power, but he never basically criticized what Erdogan is doing and his agenda. So the thing is that you can measure depends on what is happening. So still, we don't know what happened with who helped directly. We know how close Erdogan with Taci is, but we need to investigate, and someone must be punished for what happened. How can you just deport 6 Turkish citizens with a private jet in Turkey? So as I'm saying, it depends on the reaction and the support. He continues to send money. He continues not just building mosques, also other investments through the municipality, so through the different projects, cultural projects, youth projects, sports projects, but also, as I mentioned, other economy. But as I told you, he knows exactly which country, the way he sends investment. So as I said, in Serbia, Kosovo needs investment. Kosovo is the high unemployment. We need not mosques. We have 1,000 mosques in Kosovo, not even 2 million people. What he have done, he sent over 200 businessmen in Serbia. So this is what I'm trying to say. So this is the reality. If he wants to help us invest in economy.
Yeah. So you are bringing up another dimension to the collaboration. It's not a collaboration between the states, not just only that, but also there is some mafia-like collaboration, right?
Yeah.
To combat such illegal actions in different countries.
Yeah, I mean, what happened, Kosovo was the only considered pro-Western countries that has deported 6 Gülenists to Turkey. And the way it happened with a private jet coming to the airport. And yeah, the former Prime Minister Haradinaj, he said that he didn't know that, but everyone knew that Taci knew that because he's very close to Erdogan.
Mr. Bilici, I know Arbana, you can remember him, the former CEO of today's Zaman and Zaman as well. He's here too. And
yes.
Do you have another question for Arbana or anything to say? And in the meantime, our participants can go to the chat box to write their questions and to complete a survey there. We want to hear your opinions, ideas for the upcoming events, upcoming seminars. Yeah, Mr. Bilici, you have the ground.
Yeah, I like to underline an important point, which is the failure of the democratic countries to Erdogan's mafiatic emergence. You know, since Erdogan started to drift from democracy, to get away from democracy into an authoritarian rule, and this was not secret. This was taking place for last 7-8 years. But during that time, unfortunately, the democratic countries, mainly European, mainly European countries, always prefer to appease Erdogan, to work with Erdogan, to legitimize Erdogan. So when you look at the official visits of Erdogan to Europe, he was in Germany, he was in Britain, there are some critiques coming from European Parliament and some human rights organizations. But when I look at the governments doing a very bad job in terms of preventing Erdogan to establish or to convert Turkey into a kind of rogue state. Can you imagine that Turkey is part of NATO, Turkey is part of European Union, Turkey is part of all international institutions, but it is hijacking, kidnapping people in the mid of Europe, and there is not much voice from European capitals. I don't talk about the European Union institutions. Yes, they are critical, but when you look at what's happening in London, in Berlin, in Paris, unfortunately, they are responsible for all that. And why they are keeping quiet? Because of the refugee problem. So the European governments are afraid of the flood of Syrian refugees, and in return, they keep silence. I mean, accepting whatever rogue and illegal things Erdogan is doing, not just in Turkey, but around Turkey. Can you imagine Turkish government under Erdogan transferring the jihadis, terrorists from Syria to Libya? So, I mean, in the beginning, the Europe was silence in Erdogan's destruction of democracy in Turkey, but now Erdogan became one man in country, destroyed democracy and rule of law, and it is not good now for Europe. So its policies of destruction and illegality, the mafiatic policies, are coming to Germany, to Italy, to Albania, to Macedonia, and other countries. So this is not. I mean, when you consider Turkey's location, this is the worst policy to do. You know, Turkey is an important player, a very important geostrategically located country, and it could use its influence positively, but it can use its influence very negatively too. So this is what we see now. So Turkey, unfortunately, the Turkey's allies let Erdogan to create such a system that kidnaps people, not just in Balkan countries, but tries to kidnap people even from America.
Yeah, Mr. Bilici is right. Yeah, mafia-like actions. So, Arbana, I have questions here in the chat box. I guess they are from Balkan countries. I don't know, but they are asking about if you know how much investment Turkey has in Kosovo, or they have. If Turkey has an investment, is that just mosques or other, FDI?
Yes, I told you it's not just mosques. There are also other investments. But from the article that I have last year, from some official numbers, there are over 10 billion euros that he have spent it, not just in Kosovo, also in Bosnia, in Macedonia, in Albania. But let me mention you something. Mm-hmm. The two largest mosques in Balkans, they are going to be built. One is in Kosovo and one is in Albania. Both of them that cost around $30 million. So it's, as I told you, in meantime, when he privatized airport, it's a private investment, but they are also through the TICA organization. So there are a lot of investments. Like, I don't know the recent numbers, but there are millions that he has been investing. But mostly, like besides the airport and the energy distribution, they are mostly on the reconstruction of the mosque. So he is trying to reconstruct the Ottoman area, obviously, but right now using his personal agenda. But the TIC organization is working a lot with the youth, so in the different parts of the Balkans, and they are very close with the high state officials.
Yeah. So what can be done to educate people, not the, administration, but the people there, to be aware of what's going on?
Media should report as much as they can. What I've realized after I come in the United States, I met a lot of Turkish fellows, and when they told me their personal experience, what they've been passing through, basically the dictatorialship of the Erdogan. So then I have started learning more and more, because I was focused only in Kosovo, and then I have realized what is happening outside Kosovo. So we have to report as much as we can. In the meantime, there are some other decisions that we cannot make. In this case, Kosovo should be, as soon as possible, the people of Kosovo should be allowed to travel without the visa. So then they will realize what is happening. In the meantime, is the only Austria that they decided to close the Erdogan mosque, and they expelled the Erdogan imams to Turkey. So they took a decision. They brought facts that these imams were spying for Erdogan. So it's not that they built mosques for people to go and pray. So we just have to bring facts on who this person is. So he cannot play having a young, like the children, like he's hugging children, while you have 800 kids in the prisons in Turkey with their moms. It's like they are, I don't know if in Kosovo they know this, especially those that they cannot read in English. They don't know what is happening. If you bring these facts, like how can he be a good Muslim when you have hundreds of kids in the Turkish prison? So this way you can raise awareness by the daily advocacy.
Yeah. Do the
I had,
from the
Hassanım, I had a very interesting experience.
Yeah.
During one of my speeches at college. So there I told that how media is silenced, how academics, teachers are jailed in Turkey in last 7-8 years. So I also told that more than 10,000 women and more than 700 babies are in jail. So at the end of the class, one girl, one of the students, approached me, and so she was a little shy, and said that these are the things that first time I hear. So she was from Somalia, living in America, living in United States, and her family was very much supporters of Erdogan, and she told me that this is the first time I hear that Erdogan is such an oppressive leader and doing such horrible things against innocent people in Turkey. So I agree with Albana in the point that there is a very big network of propaganda that Erdogan government and Erdogan regime is using around the world, especially through Muslims. Yeah. The mosques play an important role. News agency, Anatolian news agency plays an important role. All other TİKA plays an important role. The Turkish intelligence service plays an important role. So these were, in the past, these were state institutions of the Turkish Republic, and they were serving the Turkish interests, as a government, as a state. But now they are all acting in the name of Erdogan's disastrous and the mafia type system and his Sikh Islamist ideology. So all of these institutions of the state are serving this sickening Islamist ideology of Erdogan. That is very important to know. For the Western government, especially. You know, there has been an important development in America. You know, this the media network considers themselves as real media and acts like journalists. But indeed, they act not like media, not like journalists, but like propaganda machines of the government. So this year, the American government, American judiciary, decided radio television should be registered as a foreign. So now, last month, in March 2006, in very recently, Turkish radio television registered as a foreign agent, lobbying and making propaganda of Erdogan government, not as a real media. And that is very important to be realized in European countries as well. That these institutions benefit from the status of acting like media, like journalists, because when you are a journalist, you have a lot of rights. But there is a very important difference between the propaganda machine and the media. But many European countries still are not, able to see that difference.
As I have at 3:30 to join the TV show, so if you have any questions, I can answer them later.
Great, yeah, great. That would be great. Thank you. And there is another question from a participant here. Do the opposition media members in Kosovo ally with the ones in Turkey?
I don't know. Yeah, of course, they support what is happening. Like they do report, but not that often on what is happening in Turkey. But yes, they do criticize directly Erdogan, especially with what happened with the Gülenists. And that's why, as I told you, one of my colleagues, so he runs the largest newspaper. So the Turkish ambassador asked directly, send a letter to the government. They asked to arrest this journalist.
Yeah. So to wrap it up, Arbana, we're coming to the end. We want to hear your last remarks. What can be done? What's being done in Kosovo, in Balkans, in terms of Turkey's involvement?
We should raise awareness. We should raise awareness as much as we can. It's our job as a journalist to report on sinister plans of Erdogan, not only him, whoever tries to interfere in our issues. In meantime, as I said, Europe, EU countries should be open more with Kosovo in this case, because I come from that country. They need to invest more. And we have to raise the awareness on the daily based on what is happening. And as we have to find out the links of the Erdogan with our politicians. So this is what we can do. And it's in the EU official hands to take some major decision in our support and not let Erdogan, either Russia, to influence this very important part of the Europe.
Yeah. So before closing the streaming here, I would like to remind you that Arbana is on Twitter, on the social media. You can follow her, and her contact information is in the chat box. My friends just shared it. And Mr. Bilici is also very active in the social media on Twitter as well. You can follow them to be aware of what's going on, because as you said, awareness is the first step, and then taking action is the second one, which is very important. And thank you, Arbana. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
for being here.
Thank you.
You can also, before going away, can you please complete the survey in the chat box that we can hear your ideas or your suggestions, your criticism for our next upcoming events. We have 2 more events next week. We'll let you know when they are ready. And I would like to thank everyone for being here, for joining us. Thank you.